Today we have with us America's mayor, the presidential defender, Rudy Giuliani. Good morning, Mayor Giuliani. How are you this morning?
I'm really well, John. How are you, my friend?
I am well. So many things are happening in Washington, and it seems like the special prosecutor is on the warpath. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the special prosecutor has stepped over the line now with the way he's intimidating people in order to tell what he believes is his version of the truth. When you look at Mr. Manafort, they've had him in solitary confinement for 5 to 6 months, I think, and they have repeatedly questioned him, and they have told him they don't believe him, and they want him to give certain forms of evidence that would implicate the president in things that Mr. Manafort says are untrue. And at some point, after you do this 4, 5, 6 times, you got to accept the fact that, well, Mr. Manafort maybe doesn't have the recollection they like. And they are pressuring him and creating a real risk that the man might commit perjury. Now, apparently, he's a strong enough person to withstand it. But, after a while, this kind of pressure can create the risk of tainted testimony.
Now, Mr. Manafort, I understand that Mueller's people went into his home like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, took him prisoner, put him in handcuffs, and he's been in jail for how long now?
I think it's about 4 to 5 months, John. He's not just in jail. He's actually in solitary confinement for his own protection. So they have him in a cell 22, 23 hours a day. They just let him out for a short period. And then every once in a while they go grab him, they bring him to their office, and they interrogate him. And they've done this about 12 times. And each one of those times he has told them, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what you want to hear. So there's a point at which they're sending a terrible signal. An ethical prosecutor would stop this and pursue some other line of inquiry with other people. After all, he's just saying what everybody else has said. There's no evidence that the president was involved in any kind of collusion about the election.
Is Manafort an American citizen?
Of course he's an American citizen. He's being treated like he's a terrorist.
How can they treat an American citizen that hasn't been convicted in that matter?
Well, he's now been convicted, but they were treating him like this even before he was convicted. And even though he's convicted, after a while, they're going to create, if it's not with Mr. Manafort, someone else, they're going to create a real temptation for the person to lie, either to get out of solitary confinement or to get probation or to reduce a 20-year sentence. You can only exert a certain amount of pressure before it becomes unethical and destructive.
Now, it just seems that they're going far beyond the call of duty. Mr. Mueller, this week, it sounds like as strong as Mr. Manafort is, Michael Cohen looks like he collapsed. He surrendered. What did Mr. Cohen admit to?
Well, they've obviously exerted a lot of pressure on him, too. And so Mr. Cohen, unfortunately, has a history of significant lies in the past. This is a man who was a lawyer and taped his own client and then revealed it. This is a man who had an interview with Chris Cuomo and told Chris Cuomo he wasn't recording it, went through the charade of showing him that he had no phone. Meanwhile, the phone was in the desk, and he recorded the 2-hour conversation. And he probably did this 4 or 5 times that we know of. So he's a serial liar. So it's very hard to tell which version of the truth is correct. In many cases, he said one thing under oath. Now he's saying another thing. For some reason, because he is saying what they want to hear, they're going to see what they can do to reduce whatever sentence that he has.
Now, once a person has admitted he's lied, which version do you believe?
Well, it becomes really hard to know. And, they're treating Manafort. They voided his plea deal. They're going to try to put him in prison for a longer period of time because they say they believe he's lying. They've offered no proof of that. Now, in Cohen's case, He's actually been convicted of lying before the Congress, but they're not treating him the same way. In fact, they're giving him, a substantial, or they're creating the impression that they're going to give him a big break for what he's saying. And
So
these
in other words,
are dangerous circumstances.
They're giving him a big break because he's telling them what they want to hear.
Oh, yeah. Then we have Mr. Corsi, who they're trying to get to plead guilty to another one of their famous false statements, not to an underlying substantive crime, but a false statement. They're trying to get him to do it. They actually wrote out what they wanted him to say, and he said no. So they're going to take his probation away, and they're going to try to put him in prison probably. They actually wrote out for him what they wanted him to say. So this really does start to sound a lot like what the president has been saying, but this isn't a search for the truth. It's a witch hunt.
I tell you, most Americans are shocked that this kind of things can happen in our country, and that prosecutors can do that.
This is what's wrong with these special prosecutors and independent counsels. They think they're God. I mean, they think they know the only truth that exists, even if there's a lot of doubt about it. They seem to want to people at any cost, including the cost of ethical behavior or the rights of people. And because, 70 to 80% of the mainstream media is biased, they let them get away with it. I think if this were being done the other way around by some Republicans to a Democrat, we would have a major scandal, much bigger than the silly Russian collusion thing, for which there's no evidence, at least no evidence of any participation by President Trump.
Now, I understand with Michael Cohen, his original testimony was something like that the discussion he had with the Russians was originally in January 2016, but maybe it was really July, and he couldn't really remember?
Well, that's true. I mean, this first of all, the deal that was being considered never happened. In fact, it never got past first base. It was a letter of intent that was sent to Russia to build a hotel there. They didn't even know really where to send it. They sent it to a general email address, and nothing ever happened. So, as you know from your great business experience, a proposal is not a deal. Somebody has to agree to the proposal. Nobody did. Somebody has to make it a contract. Nobody did. And then somebody has to start building a building. None of that happened. So, I mean, what kind of ridiculous thing is this?
Well, it's very, very shocking. I remember when I was running for mayor, Mr. Mayor, that Mike Cohen called me, came to visit me, wanted to have breakfast with me, and he represented that he was working for Donald Trump, and that's the only reason I met with him. He gave me a Donald Trump card, but before I met with him for breakfast and after I met with him, I still didn't know what he wanted. It was I think what you're saying is 100% correct. I think Michael Cohen goes out and seeks deals where he can look like a hero if something looks good.
I believe that's right. John, it's no secret that he wanted to be chief of staff or he wanted to have some very high position in the government, and the president didn't think he was up to it, which I guess turns out now to be absolutely correct. I have to suspect that created ultimately some form of bitterness. And when this pressure was applied to him, I just don't think that he withstood it. Look, this is a man who had a history well before this of consistently lying and deceiving, particularly with regard to these tape recordings, which is really outrageous.
Yes. What else would you like to tell the American public on Sunday morning?
I'd like to tell the American public that this has to come to an end now. The president right now is at the G20, and he's trying to negotiate in the best interest of the United States. We've seen the remarkable results he can get when he negotiates. Look at North Korea. Look at Iran. Very different situations today. Look at Israel. Look at the deal we were able to make with Mexico when they said he could never do it on trade. I suspect we're going to have a deal ultimately with China on trade, and pretty soon. We should let this president be president and not pursue him for something that after 2 years and 2 investigations, nobody has yet even suggested a piece of evidence that links him to some kind of Russian hacking. Just the mere fact that you have people that talk to Russians It's not a crime to talk to a Russian. You've got to be talking about conspiring to hack in order to be. Even collusion's not a crime. Conspiracy to hack would be the crime. Donald Trump was not involved in any of that. So why not require special counsel to basically take everything they have, write up a report, give it to the Justice Department, and let's put up or shut up. What do you got? Stop all the nonsense with the pressure and the kind of oppressive tactics that are un-American, and show us the evidence you have. Because they don't have any, John.
I haven't seen Mueller criticize any Democrats at all. The IRS woman that was in charge of the IRS that lied to Congress, nobody's ever done anything about it. You know, you were in the Justice Department many years ago. Was it always that way, or is it in the last 5 years?
No, this is much worse. This is a group of people that are operating as a group of sort of independent agents doing their own thing, making their own rules. Almost all of them were big supporters of Hillary Clinton. One of them worked for her. Another one donated $32,000 to her. Another one went to her victory/loss party and was crying. Now, we know how insanely angry and upset some of these people have become with Donald Trump because he defeated Hillary Clinton. And when you consider some of the emails of Peter Strzok, who was originally the lead investigator, who demonstrated how much he hates Trump, how can you escape the conclusion that they're really conducting a totally prejudiced and biased investigation? Because in their own warped judgment, this is better for the country to remove Donald Trump.
Well, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, thank you for your wisdom.
John,
thank you for your
as
insight.
Always.
And
your questioning is always excellent, John.
Thank you. And we'll catch up again real soon. And have a great Sunday.
You too, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.